Welcome, Naomi. How are you doing?
Hi. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, nice to be here.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, so I thought today to get started, it would be great to hear a little bit about your background, how you got involved with crypto, what you're doing now, and what you think the future really looks like.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll allow questions at any time in the chat. If anyone wants to drop them in, please go for it. Otherwise, we can get to them at the end. But yeah, take it away. Floor is yours.
yeah. So actually, I have prepared a presentation because I wasn't really sure what kind of format this will be. But yeah, we can just
Totally
kick
fine.
it off interactively first. Yeah, so I got into crypto in 2018. I was in Japan at that time. I just came out of an internship in a big corporate, Mitsubishi Fuso, and I couldn't imagine working in cubicles ever. So I was looking for a job where I wouldn't have to do that. And somehow I ended up at a blockchain consulting company. So that
Mm-hmm.
was really my first contact with blockchain crypto. I had heard of Bitcoin before, but I had no clue at that point. And I also told them in my interview that I actually have no clue, but they hired me regardless. And I started going down the rabbit hole and haven't gotten out of it since. So yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I started working for a crypto exchange where I am still at as a marketing manager, just trying to make it easier for people to understand crypto, make it take away a bit of the everybody thinks it's just criminals using it, or it is super anonymous, it's super complicated. But I don't think it is. I mean, obviously there's still a lot of technical abstract things going on in the back end, but I think when it comes down to it, it's to empower people. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to drive home as a message. And yeah, that's how I got into it, still in it. And
Fabulous.
yeah, very exciting to be here as well.
So I'm curious, as you say you started working with crypto in 2018 initially. How difficult was the learning curve for you when you first started to dive in? Were things very abstract, or did you manage to find some really good resources to bring yourself up to speed quickly?
Yeah, so I think 2018 was also still very different because we had just come out of this ICO bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So I think things were a bit calmed down, which was good because I had more time to study. But I did find some good resources. Obviously, I read the Bitcoin white paper, which is also fairly straightforward, I think, even though
Mm-hmm.
there's obviously a lot of abstract things if you actually started looking at the code, which I didn't
Yeah.
because I'm not a coder. So I kind of trust people to explain to me how these things work in the back end. So yeah, I was just really going through the internet, reading every source I could. I also bought some books on it. Yeah, and I think we all continue learning every day because things move so fast.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
No, 100%. And
yeah,
so the platform you were working for was previously Bitcoin.com, but now it's fmfw.io. Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct. We went through a rebranding last week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, feels like a year. But yeah, we wanted to show that we are, I mean, FMFW stands for Free the Money, Free the World, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of what we think crypto is trying to achieve. And funny enough, I think a lot of people start learning about finance the first time when they get involved in crypto. At least it was the case for me. And it was the case for a lot of people I've met that before that they hadn't really think about the money. They haven't really spent much thought to the monetary system, but suddenly as soon as you get into crypto, because it's such a paradigm shift, they started to figure out that maybe our fiat money is a bit weird, or maybe the way central banking is working isn't the best. So yeah,
Yeah,
and
this
we
is
went.
such it's a great point actually, because a lot of my peers as well, I think to a certain extent, the gamification of crypto
Mhm.
has really brought people into this world of finance where now their financial
Yeah,
literacy has improved tenfold. You know, they're
yeah,
using terminology which normally was exclusive to the domains of accountants,
yeah,
economists, et cetera, et cetera. And I find this to be very empowering as well, because it does really drive people to sort of look at the conventional, traditional financial structures that we're actually dealing with today. And they do kind of begin to dematerialize. And yeah, I think people really do see the insanity behind what's actually happening with printing money ad nauseum and everything like this. And so it's taking us to a very interesting place. And I think that the power of memes as well has done a lot to drive crypto home. I mean, some of it's just crazy, some of it's really funny. But again, it's just fueling the fire, you know. I think it's really, really good. So as a marketing manager, exactly what are you guys, or what are you specifically sort of focused on actually doing? Are you creating sort of educational resources, or is it more sort of marketing of the actual business itself?
Yeah, so yeah, we do create a lot of like blog posts. I never thought I would be good in writing, but it turns out I am fairly decent. So I've been creating a lot of education articles explaining just what's going on in the space, which is not necessarily always directly connected to the exchange. It's more about explaining people, for example, when we list a new token, what this token is trying to achieve, and what the tokenomics are. And so just, I mean, I always try to tell people it's fun to buy something just because it's up tenfold, but that's usually not the best strategy. It's better to know something about the things, to do your own research, and ideally invest in something that you are aligned with. So you can, if it goes down for a few months, you can hold it out because you still feel like you invested in something that you're aligned with for the greater good, let's say, versus, yeah, just for fun. Yeah, so there's a lot of creating educational resources. We do host AMAs as well, and obviously social media management is also a big part of what I do, creating email newsletters. And then obviously we also host things for traders, such as trading competitions, and yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous. So what would you say is probably the biggest hurdle that you've kind of encountered when actually speaking to people or creating sort of educational material, in terms of just in trying to facilitate faster adoption of cryptocurrencies? What would you say is kind of the biggest hurdle that you encounter?
I think the biggest hurdle is getting people's attention in the first place, because everybody is so busy doing all these kind of things, and all these platforms are competing for our attention. So first of all is getting people to focus and actually read something. I think that's every marketer's challenge, regardless of what you do. And then I think it's abstracting away all the technicalities and breaking it down to what it's trying to achieve. Like, obviously, these tokens, they have sometimes very difficult technological backgrounds. They have 3, 4, 5 layers, and consensus algorithm that is something like, yeah, Byzantine fault tolerance and whatnot. All these things are very complicated. And I think most of the time you don't need to understand the nitty-gritty of them. You just need to understand how it works roughly. So just breaking that down and breaking it in, yeah, explaining things in layman's terms, I think is one of the challenges you will always face. And then obviously some people just from the get-go, they're like, nah, I don't believe in crypto, it's a scam. So yeah, kind of getting through to these people is pretty difficult. I mean, it's the same if you discuss with at the moment anti-vaxxers, vaxxers, whatnot. Yeah, sometimes it's also just their position and they're not willing to give it up. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And not until at least there's like some seismic or cataclysmic events, and then they finally get shaken out of their sort of comfort zone. So are you the one who's actually sort of going through and assisting with vetting the new coins that you bring on, and sort of synthesizing exactly what it is that they're actually trying to do, and then distilling that into marketing material?
So the vetting process is actually not me doing that. That is above my level to say who are we listing. But I'm definitely always creating. I'm usually reading their white paper and trying to understand what they do, to then create a like 500 word something article on them, and also so that we can include some words about what this token company is doing in our social media posts and all other communications that go out. Yeah.
Fabulous. And the exchange, is it accessible all around the world, or do you primarily focus on specific jurisdictions? What's the move there?
Yeah, so the exchange is technically available everywhere, but obviously we do not serve US clients officially because we're not licensed there.
Mhm.
So there is a list of restricted countries that we are not able to serve because of regulations or sanctions and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's
Fabulous.
online, so anybody can access it if they want
Technically
to.
speaking, yeah. No, that's
Yeah.
very cool. I've just found that there are certain crypto exchanges in the research that I've been doing that really do just try and service one sort of jurisdiction, specifically in places like Australia and New Zealand as well. So I was looking quite closely at them.
And
And I
Japan
think
as
to a
well.
certain extent, it kind of makes sense because you can kind of cater to a community that you perhaps better understand, and then it's easier for you to create facilities to take fiat and allow there to be exchanges to take place and everything like this.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's also the regulatory environment. I mean, I was living in Japan and they put this process in place where only if you are licensed by the financial authority, you can actually run an exchange. So they have now 17 approved exchanges, and most of them are purely like Japanese exchanges. They focus only on that market. A few of them, like Kobe, have tried to get in, but I think, yeah, sometimes if it's a very specific market, then it definitely makes sense.
Yeah, it's very interesting actually as well, because I know, how long were you living in Japan for?
For 2 years.
Okay, cool. And so what was your experience there with regard to crypto adoption? Because I know the Japanese, culturally speaking, are a little bit standoffish about even talking or dealing with money publicly, doing something like that. And so I was always curious what the adoption would be in Japan, but looking at the numbers, it's actually quite a lot of cryptocurrency users in Japan.
Yeah, an interesting BitFlyer, so which is one of the big exchanges in Japan, and they mostly serve Japanese people. They frequently rank in the top 10 exchanges on CoinMarketCap, and that is with just Japanese audience mostly. So that's quite impressive. So I think Japanese have been definitely very fast to adopt crypto, even though just a limited scope. Officially, they're just allowed to trade, I think, 15 different tokens or so. But
really? Okay.
yeah, Binance in the early days had a lot of Japanese users. So that was one of the first exchanges I think I came in contact with when I was living in Japan as well. So yeah, I think it was very fast. And there's also quite some spaces where you can actually already use your Bitcoin to buy stuff. So
Well, this
when
is
I lived
amazing.
there was a big camera. I think that's a big, yeah, it's a big chain. They have everything. They sell all kinds of stuff, mostly tech, and they accept Bitcoin. And then I also went to some local sushi place, and they actually had all these different QR codes where you could use Litecoin, you could use Bitcoin Cash, you could use Bitcoin, whatever, if you wanted to pay, which I find quite interesting. So I think it's fairly good. And Bitcoin.com has been very active in Japan. So they have a big office in Japan and they have onboarded a lot of merchants as well. So all these merchants now accept crypto.
Wow, that's so cool. Would you say in your experience there that it's a mostly cashless society? Like the jump to actually using cryptocurrency is probably not that large?
That's quite the funny thing. Japan is not cashless at all. So
really?
before pandemic, when I lived there, it was mostly cash. So sometimes you went to places and then you had to go to the ATM because they didn't accept card. And that was quite frequently. It was still very cash heavy society. I think now the pandemic has definitely changed things a bit. But that's what I found so funny that they accept crypto, but everybody still pays in cash. It's kind of, I mean, it kind of makes sense because cash is more private than card. And crypto is, depending on what you use, more private than card. So maybe in that sense, but yeah.
Wow, that's really curious indeed. Because I mean, they're just so technologically developed as well. I mean, I guess it depends exactly where in Japan you actually are. But obviously, all the images I that come to mind when I'm thinking of Tokyo, you know, it's just like everything is just technologically developed.
But I think that's the funny thing. It's if you're actually there. I mean, obviously they used to be pretty advanced, but if you are there, you're like, oh, it's not as advanced as I thought. I still have to use a stamp to sign my contract. Like I can't use my signature. I have to buy a stamp with my name.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah. So there's all these things.
Wow.
I mean, I think it's funny enough. It's a bit similar with Germany because people always think Germany has everything figured out, and then they learn we still use fax for everything in the bureaucracy. It's like, oh well.
Mm, yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a bit more perception in terms of technologically advanced. I think they were really advanced 10 years back. Now the rest is catching up.
Yeah, well, like some old habits die hard, and it's especially
Yeah,
with legacy systems as well. Because I actually met a
yeah.
banker on my most recent flight, and I got talking with the guy, and he's actually the one that is involved with helping to update the banking systems. And he was
Oh,
telling me, he's like, this is like nothing you've ever experienced. They are so attached to their legacy systems, and what they sort of
yeah,
do is they keep on doing these forks of the legacy system because they never want to do a full upgrade.
yeah,
And so there's some systems that they're using that are like 10, 20 years old. And he's like, man, it's crazy. And they've created an environment for themselves where it's actually so hard to update just based on the way that it actually runs. And so I think as well,
yeah,
internally speaking, this is one of the great advantages of certain cryptocurrencies and certain networks is that that ability to actually update and having that community and being able to like have the governance to make these changes is actually so much easier, and it's really like baked
yeah,
into the system,
yeah.
which is really,
That's
really
so true.
awesome. So as far as things go, where are you sort of thinking crypto is headed at this point in time, and what do you think that we sort of need to do to kind of aid adoption? Because obviously education is a big thing, but what about use cases? Where do you see crypto sort of getting major adoption as far as use case actually goes? Because right now, at least with Bitcoin, you know, everyone's just holding. No one's really
Hmm.
doing that much transacting with Bitcoin. So how do we
Yeah,
sort of how do we make that step into
yeah.
that sort of next place?
I mean, I could imagine a future where Bitcoin is more of the role that gold has at the moment, is a store of value, and people hold it for longer term just to retain some kind of money. But I mean, there could also be more adoption, let's say, with the Lightning Network, for people to actually start spending small amounts of their cryptocurrency. Or maybe there's going to be another currency that's going to do that best. But I do think that there's definitely a use case for crypto and payments.
Mhm.
That might not be the networks we currently see. Who knows? Maybe in 10 years, there's something totally different. Um, but I definitely think payments is one, especially remittance. I mean, anybody who has ever moved across country borders and tried to get their money from one account to another account has probably experienced a bit of a shock moment when they checked how much the bank would charge you for that.
Yeah,
Even for
absolutely.
smaller amounts, even transfer wire. I think they're now wire, but they still charge fairly a lot in comparison, and it still takes a day or two, and it's not very transparent because it's kind of this black box where you don't know where
Mm,
your money is at the moment. Whereas if
yeah,
you do
yeah.
it with your crypto, you can just check your hash, you can just check if it's included in the block or how many more confirmations are needed. So I think there's definitely a case for that. And then obviously also once we do have, once crypto is more accessible, I also can see it because smartphone adoption is bigger than bank account adoption. So I think it
Mhm.
can definitely help bank people.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, bec-
100%.
yeah. Like I mean,
Sorry.
we have seen it.
Go for it.
M-Pesa in Kenya, I think was it. It's like
Mhm.
money that runs mostly on your smartphone, and it has seen crazy adoption. So I think that crypto could facilitate something similar in the unbanked of this world.
Absolutely, because the previous speaker, his name is Paco. He's basically he has a project called Run with Bitcoin, which I
Ah,
didn't actually quite understand the extent of what he was really doing, but he is
yeah.
literally traveling across 40 countries only spending Bitcoin. And so far, I think he said he's been on the road for about 40 days, and he's managed to
Hmm.
successfully do it, from buying food to paying for the dentist to just getting a toothbrush to getting a little ice cream
Hmm.
and everything like this. And so far it's really good. But he brought up the point as well that most of India is in fact unbanked as well. And
Yeah.
this is a very exactly the same case for places like South Africa as well. I was doing some research on that. And most of these people do actually have smartphones, but they don't actually have bank accounts. And so I think in this way, we could actually see a lot of the developing world really accelerate adoption as well, just because of the utility and the practicality. And I think obviously once they understand the sort of macro aspects of inflation and how to hedge against it, they could actually see Bitcoin as a potential sort of safe haven to a certain extent as well, which I think is really, really cool. But it's just such an interesting time to be witnessing this whole space unravel, because I mean, we do have a lot of cryptocurrencies here, and a lot of people I speak to, they really liken the point that we're in to sort of what was happening with the .com boom. You know, we're like right at the bottom of this exponential adoption here. And it could be that in 5, 10, 20 years, maybe there's something that replaces Bitcoin. It's hard to say, but I've spoken and listened to a lot of the maximalists talk about Bitcoin, and they are just 100%, this is perfect money. The reason that nothing else is going to exist is because nothing else can exist, because this is already here and it's perfect money. And so to that extent, I definitely think that Bitcoin has accelerated a lot of the development in the blockchain space to really contribute awesome things towards humanity as a whole. So I'm just curious, I'm watching, I'm learning every day as well, and I'm just seeing like what's about to happen here. But it's just a very, very curious time. And so with regard to just to sort of wrap things up at this point, where are you sort of looking in the future? Like, what would you sort of like to see happening with regard to your work? Are you interested in kind of getting more involved in the crypto sphere, or at this point in time, do you think you're sort of immersed now?
No, well, actually, I'm about to change jobs and join a new company. So that's quite an interesting one. I will do similar things to what I do now in terms of work. But it is a company that has a blockchain that everybody can run on their phone. Because I think one of the challenges at the moment is that mining, even in Bitcoin, has become fairly centralized. And as soon as you introduce a centralized aspects into a decentralized network, it has a point of failure. And that's why they do a blockchain that anybody can run a node on their phone, because this way you can have true decentralization, which I think was one of the aspects that I got really excited about when I learned about blockchain. Because if we all run a node on our phone, or if we all participate in this, then there's no one person that can shut us down, that can censor you, and you are just in control of what happens to you, your data, your messages, and all these things. So I think that's I think unfortunately also one of the aspects that's often sacrificed for scalability. The fact that that anybody who wants a faster blockchain just says, okay, we're going to do proof of stake, and only if you have 500 of our token, you can be a staker. And in the end, you just have 10 stakers. It's like, okay, well, 10 people is better than one, but it's still like a cartel of the big banks. I mean, it's basically not so different. So I hope people will realize more that it's also about decentralization, not just about the money, and that it's bigger than just making a quick gain.
I absolutely agree as well. And I think we still have a few problems that we do need to iron out as well. I don't think we have arrived at the final destination at all. And so this is why it's honestly, I think this may even go down as one of the most interesting points in human history, because we now have these exponential curves of innovation, of technological adoption. And I think things are happening faster than our human minds can even understand to a certain extent. So I think with the introduction of all this new technology, software to a certain extent, and blockchain are going to need to help us protect us from ourselves. So hopefully we can get this right. And anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, Naomi. I really appreciated having this chat.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Look forward to catching up again soon. Where exactly are you based in the moment? You said you're in Germany?
No, I'm in London. I'm flying to Germany on Friday, just to visit though. I'm usually in London, so if anybody's around.
I'll be in London in about a month actually. So I'll be there with my band. We're actually going to be playing a gig. So if you're around, definitely, I'll get in touch with you and you can come and check it out.
I'll tip you on crypto then. Instead of throwing cash.
Amazing, Naomi. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you,
Have an amazing day.
everyone. You too. Bye.
Ciao.